We are live. Okay, welcome everybody to this episode of the SOS series. I'm very excited to talk to you a little bit about WorkAbility. We're a small co-working space based uptown. We've got 6 locations, and we are in the process of dealing with COVID, as is everybody else. And so we put together this SOS series. We wanted to have a chance to give people access to resources that perhaps they don't already have, and also give them a chance to learn a little bit more about how to deal with various issues that come up in business during a crisis. And as such, we have Arezou Zarafshan and Brian Curr here today to talk about how to handle how to lead in a crisis. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about Arezou, and then she's going to introduce Brian. Arezou is amazing. She's not only an incredible businesswoman, she started her own companies, she's consulted, she's led. She has a consulting agency, which is Arezou Zarafshan Consulting, but it's aza.consulting if you want to find out a little bit more about her. I'm very lucky to also call her a friend. And so I'm going to hand it over to you, Arezou. Actually, no, I'm not. I want to say one little thing just about what's going on in WorkAbility at the moment. We were broken into and looted over the last weekend. And we obviously, amongst lots of other people, sort of arrived and found broken glass and things strewn everywhere. And it was awful. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because we're fine. We're in a position where we can rebuild really, really quickly. But what I want to do is I want to get a message out there. We want to offer anybody who's been impacted by the protests and the riots in this way. We want to offer free office space to anybody who needs it for the duration of time that it's going to take to rebuild and pull some stuff together. And so if anybody wants to take us up on that, please get in touch with me directly. It's Caroline@workability.works. Equally, if you can think of anybody who needs this message, if you could pass it on beyond this kind of realm, I would be really, really grateful. So that's my bit. And Arezou, please, you take it from here.
Thank you, Caroline. So Caroline is extremely, extremely modest. She calls WorkAbility a small co-working space, but it's actually a pretty good size, and they have 6 locations, as she says, and I don't know how many hundreds, maybe even thousands of members, probably hundreds. And WorkAbility, it's more than a space; it's a community. I am, a member of several co-working spaces, and I've worked in co-working spaces. And I have to say that WorkAbility, every time I walk into WorkAbility, I don't feel like I am going into work. This is my co-working space. This is my office. I feel like I am going to my friend's place, and I'm surrounded by friends and friendly people. And it's really, really awesome. I can't say enough about it, and it's beautiful. And I think the offer that Caroline just put out is so generous, so indicative, so characteristic of WorkAbility's modus operandi. It's all about community and giving and helping. So with that, yes, I'm Arezou Zarafshan. Thank you, Caroline, for the very, very nice introduction. I am a consultant. My passion is coaching startup founders to take their idea to the next stage and helping them change the world, because our world needs changing. We all know that. And I will talk about Brian in 1 second, but let me just read my blurb about what this session is all about. And I think it's very, very timely, given what's been going on over the past week, I think, in the country. So I really love this quote by Robin Sharma, who is a leadership guru and an author. He says, anyone can lead when the plan is working. The best lead when the plan falls apart. And I think it's safe to say that the grand plan has fallen apart quite miserably during these past few months and also the past week. Those of us who are lucky enough to be working are all sitting on pins and needles, waiting for bad news any days. In addition, if they're parents, people like me, it's quite a challenge trying to juggle working from home with kids at home and dog barking in the background. In addition, we all know what has happened over the past week in the country. We all saw, an innocent human being being murdered, on camera, just quite brutally. And there is all this unrest and racial divide, and just anxiety and tension everywhere. People are angry. People are anxious. They're acting out on their anxiety and on anger. And meanwhile, we have businesses to run. We have customers to serve. We have companies to lead. And so it behooves us to really dig in and ask ourselves, what does leadership look like in this time of crisis? And this is crisis. I mean, we still have COVID, and then it got compounded by the racial divide and the racial unrest that has been pent up for a very long time. What does leadership look like in these times? So I'm really, really excited to have this conversation with Brian. Brian is a talent management expert with over 16 years of experience in a number of companies, ranging from startups to enterprise, as well as experience in academia, including working with Harvard. He opens his mouth and that there's a wealth of knowledge and experience and wisdom right here. So I am just so excited and plus he's a super awesome human being. So with that, let's talk to Brian. Welcome, Brian. How are you?
Well, I am doing well. Thank you so much. This is such an honor. And with an intro like that, I'd love for you to go on a road show with me. If you could just...
I would do it anytime. Anytime. You just tell me when.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So tell us about yourself, Brian. I want to know a little bit about your upbringing, where you grew up, and how did you find yourself into the whole business of human capital and leadership?
So, nowadays you can go to college and you can get an executive MBA in human resources and talent acquisition. And there's lots of areas within that thought leadership. But when I was younger, we didn't really have that in college, right? You could get a business degree, but it was pretty general. And then you could get an MBA and you could get specific, but mostly in the finance or in executive leadership. But human resources and talent acquisition really kind of was growing up in the last 30 years, as far as I'm concerned. So I come from South Dakota. If you have ever read the Laura Ingalls Wilder books, Little House on the Prairie, I am from there. Well, not literally, but 30 miles away, it's a town called DeSmet, South Dakota. And that is where Little House on the Prairie was. That's where she wrote the book. So I literally am from the prairie, which is great. And I come from an agricultural background. My father is a big equestrian and my mother is an educator. And so we were just kind of raised good salt of the earth people, do right by people. That's kind of that way that we were raised. And then when I turned 18, I went to college and I studied classical music. When I was younger, I had the good fortune that my parents put me into piano and I loved it. I loved music. I think music is a great way to really bring out the left and right side of your brain. And I wanted to be a music teacher. I thought that would be great. My mom was a teacher. I think I'd be a good educator. And so I went into a music program at a great state university in Minnesota. And then I just found out that I needed to make money. And, as much as I think I'm a great piano player and a great musician, there are people more talented than I. So I had the good fortune of, while I was in college, to get an office administrative job working for our admissions team. And I had a wonderful boss and actually mentor. I'm meeting up with her tonight on Zoom. Her name is Veronica. And she really explained to me what leadership was. And I had the opportunity to be the tour guide coordinator while I was still in school. And that really was the basis of my career, moving into human resources and human capital and talent acquisition. And one of the things she always said to me was, do right by people and they'll do right by you. I know that's so simple and stupid, but if you actually follow that and you're authentic and sincere, you can lead a team. You can empower a team. Another one that I would learn after I would graduate college and I would go out to Boston, Massachusetts. I got a job working at Harvard University doing talent pipeline on-site staffing. We were doing conversions from temp 90-day contracts to temp to perm, to conversions, to direct placement. And Susan Riggs, another great manager of mine, said, good leaders eat last. And I thought, oh, that's really good.
It sounds like it's almost like a title of a book. Yeah.
I think it is. I think she got it from that, or like, one of those Dale Carnegie books, but I'm not really sure. But it doesn't matter because we know exactly what it means, right? Mm-hmm. It means that if you're going to lead a team, you got to get in the trenches. You have to be strategic and tactical. Now, as your company grows, that's different. What a startup does at 10 to 15 people, and what a small company at 90 to 100, and then mid-size 250 to 500, and then a large corporation, it's very different. But in my current company, our executives are in the trenches. There is no one working harder than the executives at my current company. Okay. So going back.
What is your current company?
So
what is your current company?
My current company is 1 year old, which is exciting. Our founder's date is July 5th. That's a day off for us. So that's very exciting. And we were actually 6 companies that came together. The first company was Tendril, and that was a merger with Simple Energy. Both are Boulder based. So for my Boulder friends on the call, you'll probably know Tendril and Simple Energy. And then after they came together, they decided it would be very strategic and smart to acquire Energy Savvy, which is out in Seattle and Cambridge, Massachusetts, and First Fuel, which is out in Boston, Massachusetts, which also has a tie to Pune, India. And we're Uplight. And so we are a software company that provides professional services to utilities. Utilities are public-private partnerships. So the quickest way I can explain this is, and one of many offerings that we provide the utilities that are our customers, are your home energy report. So Excel Energy doesn't actually do your home energy report. They work with a company such as mine to actually take on all that digital infrastructure and do that for their customers. So that's an example of one of our business streams that we provide to all of our utilities. So that is Uplight. I have been at Uplight since November 1st. So I'm at 7 months. And of course, 12 weeks of that has been during COVID, which I'm sure we'll get into in just a little bit. And going back, after I left Harvard, this was when you used to fax resumes. I don't know if anyone on the call knows what a fax machine is, but boy, I'll tell you, those fax machines, oh my gosh. I remember trying to fax resumes to hiring managers at the Harvard Business School. And I mean, it was a mess. So I'm just so happy we've moved on from that. This was before LinkedIn. I mean, now recruitment, and I've done talent recruitment now with LinkedIn, it's so different. Now we have artificial intelligence and algorithms, and people opt in and they tell us who they are, right? Back then, it was old-fashioned resumes in paper, and you would fax them. But how you do recruitment is still the same. It's still account management and sales. Packaging people's experience, first identifying where they're going, packaging their experience, and packaging it in a way that the hiring manager will understand. That is still the same. It's just the tools have evolved. So after 2 years at Harvard, my manager said, hey, across the river in Boston, Massachusetts, Berklee College of Music has a really cool job posted. And I was like, oh gosh, my boss is telling me that I should
to go look for another job. Yeah.
right. Is it a good thing that my boss is doing that? But really, there was no room for me to grow at Harvard. Harvard is very master's oriented. So in order to go up the career ladder, you have to get the master's degree. And at this time in my life, I was pretty young. I was 25, and I just didn't have the financial wherewithal to get a master's degree. And I kind of wasn't really even thinking I would want to. So Berklee College of Music, for those on the call who do not know, is really a special place. It is a premier music industry institution with a storied past in Boston. It is very much a corporation on the inside, okay? This is not your little liberal arts music school, you know, in New Hampshire. This is a machine that owns the talent pipelines in New York City, Los Angeles, and Nashville, which are the 3 commercial music hubs. And while there is a performance side of Berklee, that's not what I did. I didn't even work with that part of the institution. I was on the brand identity employer relations side. And so it was an HR function, but a very hybrid, unique one, where it was a little talent acquisition, a little human resources and program management. And really, we were making it up as we were going. This was before iTunes. This was before iPhones. So how I would get our commercial music vocational students, which were music production and engineering, songwriting, film scoring, music synthesis, music business. We even had a master's program in music business. They were all looking to work in the industry in New York City, Los Angeles, and Nashville. And so we worked with all the major record labels, Universal, Sony Music, Warner Music. We worked with all the publishing organizations like ASCAP, CSAC, BMI, Harry Fox, which is a mechanical licensing company. We worked with chop shops. We worked with music supervision houses. And then the iPhone came out. And then iTunes came out. And then Spotify came out. And that was a whole new music paradigm. And then, are you ready? The recession hit. Dun, dun, dun. Wow. The music industry was laying people off left and right. I mean, you couldn't even get an unpaid internship in 2009 and 10 in New York City. That was my world. So I understand talent acquisition from an entertainment industry and an academic industry point of view. And I did that for 11 years through the recession and through the paradigm shift of the music industry and how consumers consume music. I mean, I would have students that would graduate with the music business degree going to work at a record label who had never bought music because of Pandora or because of Spotify. And I kept thinking, oh my goodness, I got to get out of here. And so after 11 years in 2017, I put a 1-month notice into Berklee and said, you know what? I think I'm gonna take a leap. I had a mentor, wonderful man. He was in charge of innovation at Berklee. He was a VP. He pulled me aside after 11 years and said, you are so good at what you do. You're still young enough. You only have a couple leaps in your life. Know when to take them and then take them. And so for 1 year, I really thought about that before I put that 1-month notice in. And right before I put my 1-month notice in, I said to him, I'm doing it. And he goes, good for you. Where are you going? I said, I don't know. I'm either going to go to Austin, Texas, Denver, Colorado, or Seattle, Washington, because those are the tech startup scenes that I want to be in. And those are the cost of livings I want to live in. And those are the communities I want to engage in. I don't want to do New York. I could have went to New York and got a job in the music industry, but I didn't want to live in New York. I didn't want to live in Boston anymore. Okay, I was ready for a second city. I could have went to LA. I didn't want to. So after going on a rainbow tour, I figured out Denver made the most sense. I have a spreadsheet to prove it. I have everything scored and figured out. And then I got here, and the first thing I did is I hit the ground running, and I found all of the tech startup organizations that would give me access points to thought leaders and to movers and shakers. One of them being Doug Thorner at Startup Grind. You know, he's quite a mover and shaker. And others, and Disrupt HR. I was a volunteer for them for 2 years with Kathleen Brank. I mean, she's amazing. She's still one of my mentors. You know. Do
you know Dave Needham?
Oh my God, Dave Needham! Yeah, he's on one of my people ops distribution lists. He's a big deal here.
He's amazing. Yeah, he's amazing.
Dude,
we got to wrap it up because I've got like a whole lot of questions to ask you.
Anyway, and here I am doing HR and talent acquisition at a software company. Go.
Love you. Love you. I'm glad that you have such a great sense of humor, but also such a, like I said, wealth of experience and knowledge. So across all of this, right? And you've seen what has happened to the world over the past few months, and then you've seen what's happened to the country over the past week. Have you ever seen anything like this? No.
I have not. This is different.
How so? Like, you went through the Great Recession.
I did.
How is this different than the Great Recession?
I'm telling you, the way it has impacted small businesses and corporations alike this quickly is different. Because remember, it was a slow roll in the recession. It was the housing market because of the junk trading bonds and all the Wall Street stuff. This wasn't Wall Street.
Right.
This was a pandemic. This is a pandemic. We're 4 months into a 2-year pandemic, and we don't even have enough data sets to figure out what we're dealing with. That's different.
And so what are some of the things that you're seeing because of this is how so different? Like, what are employees, your colleagues, how are they exhibiting what's going on?
So we use a tool called Traffic Light, where when we go into meetings, and especially if they're not like presentations, because a presentation is a different thing, but if it's a check-in meeting, where are you today? Mm-hmm. Are you red, yellow, green? And we've created a space where it's okay to say, hey, I'm having a red day. You know, my husband got laid off last night. My dog is sick. My child won't stop screaming, and I have to get you this spreadsheet. Like, that's a red day, right? Mm-hmm. And so people are not just working from home. They are at home during a crisis trying to work. Yeah. Okay, that's a very different thing. And so what we've tried to do, and my friends at other companies, by the way, these are not my ideas. Everything I'm about to tell you has been focus grouped from other people. We're trying to create a space top down where executives actually set the tone, where it's okay if a little kid has to be on your lap for 3 minutes in the Zoom call because you don't have childcare because the schools are closed, right? Mm-hmm. Or you and your partner or wife or whomever have to share the quiet room for Zoom meetings because you're both working parents. That's been a big one. Mm-hmm. And then the isolation for the people who don't have family. For the people who are working in their apartment, which is they wake up at 7 a.m., they're on Slack, then they take a shower, then they do their emails, then they're on Zooms until 5 o'clock, and then they probably still do Slack because there's nothing else to do. There's no place to go. So making it okay that people can't be 110% every day. Because the biggest thing that happens is burnout. And there's a lot of people talking about what measures can a company put in place to prevent burnout. Because the minute you start burning out a culture, you're done. You're done.
Yeah. So tell me, what are some of the bad behaviors that you've heard of, or you may have seen in the past that you're saying leaders don't do this? Like, what are some of those?
Well, not having boundaries around work-life harmony.
What's work-life harmony? Yeah. That's the first.
So let me use a musical term. Here we go. Ready? Okay. Here's my music kicking in.
Yes.
Work-life balance is predicated on the fact that you have work over here and you have life over here, and they never intersect, and you have to balance them on a high wire act. Work-life harmony is predicated that they work in symbiosis, almost simultaneously and beautifully, like harmony, right? When you have a piece of choral music, the notes harmonize, but they're separate. And so that's just a fine point to help people think differently about how do you give your direct reports and your colleagues the space to actually unplug, to not be online, right? If I send you a Slack message at 7 a.m., is the expectation that I respond at 7:05? I don't know. If I send you, if you're a parent and you have 3 hours from 1 to 4 that you have to be the parent and you can't work, and then you go in at 4 o'clock and you got emails that are crazy and you start banging those out at 7 p.m., do your coworkers who are in isolation, are you expecting them to respond that night or the next morning? Mm-hmm. And what time is it okay that they send those? So it's really important that I don't care if you have a small team, a large team, if it's a larger organization or a small team inside a large organization, you got to have agreements. And those agreements have to be a conversation, okay? So for example, if I am the boss and I have 3 direct reports, at the beginning of COVID, I would say, here's the deal. I have children. So during the day when you're shooting things out at me and you don't hear back from me, I'm not ignoring you. It's that I have to put on my parent hat. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then at night, when I finally put the kids to bed, I'm going to start sending stuff to you, but I don't expect you to be online because your day's done. So let's agree on what time it's okay to be online in the morning and at night. And what is the turnaround time on an expectation of response. And once those are agreed, commit to them. Okay. Consistency and commitment is everything. Good leaders commit. Now, there will be times when you have to do a sprint. There'll be times when there'll be always your deadline times. But if you can try to balance out people's life so they can separate at their house during this crisis, you're not going to burn them out and you're going to get them to work harder for you because they'll know that you respect their work-life harmony.
So let's talk. So you were saying deadlines and sprints. And, it almost feels like deadlines and sprints. I mean, I've worked in corporate for a long time.
Fire drill all the time.
All the time. There is no, okay, this is deadline time. This is the final week. No, it's all the time. And a lot of it now that, I've been away from corporate for a little while, I look back and a lot of it is self-imposed.
It is.
And so when it's self-imposed, then it kind of radiates into the organization and it gets them all stressed out. So talk about that. How do you manage that?
There's a few ways to do that, right? So there's the macro and the micro, okay? Mm-hmm. The micro is what can I do in my team with my direct supervisor and my colleagues to work through a fire drill or prevent the fire drill or to put some water on that fire drill. But then on a culture level, from the top down, what can the executives do? Listen, there are things that we can do culturally where we teeter on the edges to make culture good, but sometimes you just got to package people out. I'm sorry to say it, but if you have an executive that is burning your people, if you have a retention issue because you have a revolving door because of fire drills, you just got to package that executive out. I'm sorry. Exit, goodbye, because we can't have that. And then you got to go on a very clear search to bring in an executive that will. So that's the macro. Now the micro. If you're in that environment, you're just going to have to lay down the law with your colleagues and your boss and say, listen, these are the items that I've been hired to do. This is the salary that I'm on. We are not on the same salaries. So if you're making $250,000 or you have 50% equity in the company, yeah, that's your fire drill. That ain't my fire drill. My job is to get you to where you need to be to make money. So what can you do to keep me to support you? The minute I'm out because I'm like, listen, above my pay grade, you've already lost. That person's already working.
How easy is it though to have those conversations, Brian?
It takes courage. It takes courage to say the unpopular thing. There's a great book out there called Crucial Conversations. There's some TED Talks on it. I think all about, and I'd like to put this out there as another toolkit, agreements for engagement. We are going to have a conversation. And before we have this conversation, everyone on the Zoom call is going to agree to the following items. And if everyone agrees to those items, then we have created an apparatus of respect in which we can politely disagree and brainstorm how we move forward or how we compromise or how we, or maybe we don't. Maybe the answer is no.
Right.
And we figure out that's not the right thing. Like I said to an employee the other day, I said, I don't think that we're the right culture for you. And he went,
oh, wow.
And I said, so you either got to figure this out or get out of here. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I just can't. Like, I'm sorry, these are workplaces, right? So people need to be able to do that. So sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes, you're not all in.
Right.
And usually that's with the managers. That's not usually with your individual contributors.
Yeah.
Usually your biggest culture issues are middle management. And it's because they haven't been trained properly or they're inexperienced and they don't have a mentor.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that actually. So one of my questions is like, do you see that, some leaders need to be reprogrammed or wiped and reloaded, unprogrammed? And what do you see?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
There are leaders out there that I think really know how to step into it. And I think if you want to be a good leader, the number one soft skill you must have, and we see this in our leaders, our very successful corporate leaders, our political leaders, our spiritual leaders, the one word, empathy. Okay? Empathy is how you are successful. Managing teams, managing relationships. Sometimes those relationships are professional in their workplace, and sometimes those relationships are interpersonal in their friend or their family. And, you know, we don't always pick our family, do we? Right? So sometimes we have to negotiate that. But if you can have the empathy to meet that person where they are, not where you think they are, then you can empower them and you can have a conversation. And so in every place I have worked, all stages, small, mid-size, academic, music industry, software, I've been fortunate that there's been empathy at the helm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And now more than ever, right? Now more than ever, you know, what is it like for a person of color in America to go to work today?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And we all have our privileges. I have my external identities, but then I have my internal identities. Mm-hmm. So how do we create a space where we have this external macro thing, this historical thing happening like COVID or like what's happened with George Floyd? And we have people who are mosaics of their experiences coming to work and doing a sprint. Are you really going to get a person of color or someone that is going through some type of macro trauma to be 110%? No, you're not. So you gotta switch gears there. You gotta figure that out. Okay.
And so what does it take to have empathy? I mean, what is the definition of empathy, Brian?
I think empathy is thinking outside of yourself and giving people the benefit of the doubt and stepping in someone's shoes, right? That's what empathy is. And I think when you're a manager, whether you're a mid-level manager or you're a startup entrepreneur or you are in the C-suite at a large corporation, you got to take care of your people. You got to do right by your people. And if you don't do right by them, you're going to have retention issues, which is brain drain. And you know, once you get into brain drain, it's over, right? I mean, what it costs both in time and in money to get a team back up and running once you've lost them because of poor leadership or poor management or inappropriate behavior in the workplace, you're already behind the 8 ball then. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm all about like, you got to get rid of your bad apples. And like you said about reprogramming, I don't know if you have those people. So if you're a leader out there and you're a real drill sergeant and you think that leading with an iron fist is the way to lead, you are wrong. You are fundamentally, patentedly wrong. And you will never be successful. And if you have been successful, it's been despite that. Okay.
Wow. That's quite a position.
I'm doing it. I'm making the statements today with you. That's right. Drill sergeants don't get you anywhere. You can get people to work just as hard differently.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I mean, I have worked for some drill sergeants.
What was that like? Wasn't great, was it?
No, but I will say, I would rather know where I stood with who I work for than not. I mean, I have worked for some really sly leaders, and they're not leaders. I mean, they are just, they're bosses. They're nothing really. They're just facades, is what they are. And you never know where you stand with them. And the way you find out is either by surprise or through other people. And so that I don't like. So I'd rather have a drill sergeant that says to me, hey, Arezou, XYZ, you screwed up. I'd rather have that than someone that says to me one thing in my face and then does something else. But this is great. It's funny. I actually, Ken Morris, hi Ken, welcome back. He says Control Alt Delete for leaders. I love this. That's like the title of it. I love that.
Control Alt Delete for leaders. Yeah, and yes, There it is. Right there.
It's like a title of a blog. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So, Brian, do you have like people these days, like prior to the whole, George Floyd issue with COVID, do you have people coming to you and asking you, hey, Brian, will I have a job in 3 months or 2 months? How do you calm the nerves of those people?
That is a great question. So I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen here. If anyone says to you right now, oh, in 3 months it'll be this, or in 6 days it will be this, they don't know. We are in unprecedented times and we don't have enough data. So unfortunately, in my sphere of HR friends in Denver, many of them have lost their jobs, which is very sad and unfortunate because of what's going on. Their company just can't make it, right? And they've done everything they can to prevent headcount reduction, but they still have to do it. So what I try to tell people is, whether it's at my company or that are currently working and are asking me for feedback as a friend, I say to them, button up and get bulletproof. If you if you lose your job, it wasn't because of any fault of your own. It's because of we are in these unprecedented times. Okay, so you have to treat every day at work as a gift, because there are so many people right now that are unemployed that how do you even apply for jobs right now? I mean, what do you even do, right? So like they're in this very special thing. So gratitude is something we're exercising in my company, rather than worrying about losing your job, being thankful that today you have one. Now, here's our tool. One thing we're doing is actively communicating the financial fitness of our company internally every week. Okay. And that's not just my company. There are other great companies out there that are saying, this is where we are today. This is what this looks like. And we'll let you know. And our company and others like ours are doing what's called headcount reduction prevention. So what can we do to cut costs in a way that is strategic, where we can preserve our headcount? Because at the end of the day, we all know, I don't care if you have a great app idea, if you don't have software and user, UX designers and front end or full stack developers on that app, you don't got an app, you have an idea. Okay. Everyone, ideas don't make money. Your people make you money.
Bingo. Yes.
Right? So you do everything you can. You cut everything you can, even salaries, in a very specific graduated way to keep your talent. And you will be better for it when you can get through this. And then when you have to when you make those hard decisions, be very careful how you make them, and use the opportunity to get rid of your bad apples.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You've stressed that a lot.
Yeah,
You've
I have, haven't I?
I really like that, Brian. I really do resonate with it. So my question to you is, how do you identify what's a bad apple? How do you identify the bad apples? I do agree with you, but I want you to dig into it a little more.
Right. So there are some rubrics that we can use to identify a bad apple. I think the first one is a lack of respect with a team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because bad apples can produce good work.
Right. Exactly.
No, that sucks. That's a bummer, isn't it? Like your lone wolf sales guy. He might be a real pistol of a person, but he can get those metrics into you and he can close those deals every quarter, and you might need him. Well, you know what? You don't need him anymore. We do not have a talent shortage in this country. Okay. So what was permissible 10 years ago is not really permissible now. Okay. Mm-hmm. We have younger, smarter people who will do it cheaper. So so back to your identification question, I think that it really comes down to soft skills. I don't care how you deliver your results. I don't care what technical skills you have. I don't care if you have an MBA, a PhD. How do you treat your colleagues? How do you treat people on cross-functional teams? Mm-hmm. And how do you treat me? Okay. If it's all about you, if you're a taker personality, yeah, you're a bad apple. We can't have that in this company. I need people that can do more than that. I need people who can give. Mm-hmm. You don't have to give your whole self, but you have to be present. No dialing it in. Okay. No attitude. No the comment from the peanut gallery in the Zoom meetings. No way. I'm not having it. That's a bad apple.
What is that? I don't know what that means.
Have you ever been in a Zoom meeting where you're presenting and you're an expert in the field, and someone who doesn't know anything about what you're talking about constantly tries to undermine you? Have you ever had that happen?
I haven't had that happen on Zoom, but in real life, yes.
That's a bad apple. If for women, it's called mansplaining, I think, but it can also happen to men too. You're know-it-alls. It's a personality thing. If you have a know-it-all or a smart aleck personality in the workplace, it's pervasive. Mm-hmm. It just seeps in, and then it just brings out the negativity in everyone. What's that old phrase? Good people bring out the good in people, mm-hmm. and bad people bring out the bad in people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you give those bad apples a chance, or do you just?
Is it worth it?
I'm asking you.
I mean, I could give people a chance, but I think during COVID, you better not be a bad apple.
Yeah.
What was okay before March 10th is not okay anymore. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just not okay.
Yeah. That's really amazing, Brian, that there is such an emphasis on culture and behavior and soft skills, in you and your company. And I'm sad to say that it's rare. There are companies that say all the right things, but don't really deliver those. I mean, it's more of a, beautiful mural on the wall than anything like that. So it's really great to see that. Now, what about you? I mean, Brian, we were talking about takers and givers, and you give. I mean, right now you're giving, and in your company you're giving. I mean, it's your job to be there for the leaders, for the employees. How do you calm yourself down? How do you get yourself grounded? What do you do?
Wow, that's a great question. Before I answer that, just to put this out in case people have never heard this, there's a great phrase out there that says givers gain. Mm-hmm. So on a strategic level, it is always in your best interest to give away your expertise, to give away your kindness, your empathy to the right people, and it will come back to you. Now, how do I not burn out? How do I prevent burning out? Well, I think that is the $64,000 question a lot of people right now who are working are going through. Because yes, we have our unemployed friends that are victims of COVID and will continue to be victims of COVID. But then we have us who are working, who are worried about losing our jobs, but also have survivor's guilt. And not to mention that, we're also working 15 hours a week because we want everyone to know that we're present and that we don't want to lose our jobs either, because we're humans and that's a natural thing. So I think that boundaries are really important. And one of the things I do is I'm really good about turning my phone off at night. I put on airplane mode. A lot of my friends know if they send me a message at 9 p.m., they're not going to get anything until 7 a.m. because I'm either asleep or my phone's off. I am a big turn off the Slack and delete it off your phone on the weekends. Always.
Every weekend you do.
It's so easy. You just hit delete and then you just go back to the Apple Store. It comes right back in. You sign in. You're done. Because I'll tell you, the minute you get that notification at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, you can't stop thinking about what the request was, right? And then you're not thinking, and then your brain is not decompressing. It's like sleep, right? If we don't get enough REM sleep, our brain doesn't defrag what it was doing from the prior day, right? That's why Arianna Huffington and a lot of thought leaders right now are all about 10 hours of sleep, good sleep, deep sleep, do the things you can for sleep. So I would say sleep is a big part of that too. And I think, just being careful with your time, being able to say no or no, not yet, right? Right? It's not a final no, a finite no. It's no, not yet. Here's what I'm working on. Here's what I'm doing, right? I think is a big part of it. But I don't know the answer to burnout because I think that's something that is different in COVID. I think it was easier to identify how to reduce or prevent burnout before COVID. I don't know. And if you find some solutions, let me know, because I'd love to bring that back to my company and bring it to my friends at other companies, because burnout is what you're hearing people talk about. It's huge. And it's really detrimental to the progress of a company, especially let's go down to the people on this call. Small business leaders, entrepreneurs, people who have an idea they work their whole life on and or have thought about, and they have a finite amount of money, right? I don't know if VCs are still giving money right now. I don't know, or they're not, or angels. I have no idea.
Angels are what angels? Angels are gone.
Right, exactly.
Angels are right now. But no, I mean,
I guess my question to the room would be, if you're a small business owner and you're wearing many different identities, one of them being a leader, and then all your familial and friend identities, but then you're also in charge of the money, and you know how much money is in that bank and where it's going. Talk about stress.
Yeah.
How does that work, right? And so if you have 5 people in your team and you're trying to make sure that you have enough money that they can pay their bills, I'm telling you, that is a stress that I would never want right now. And so for all of you that are going through that, you have my utmost respect, because that must be really hard for you.
Yeah. I mean, I luckily I don't have any employees. My employee is mine, my own me. But I remember this is back in 2008, the Great Recession. I worked for a $2 billion company at the time as one of their executives. Yeah, and this was in Chicago. And business greatly, it was just greatly impacted. And the problem with this, one of the problems that the company had was it had a huge amount of debt. And there was a income to debt ratio that they had to maintain. Otherwise, the interest rate would go, through the roof, or the banks would call out the note, et cetera. And with income going down and debt staying the same, that was the only thing that they could do, was to reduce the expenses significantly. They could not even afford firing people, because if they fired people, according to policy, they had to get severance. They couldn't do that. So
they couldn't afford packages. Oh my goodness.
They could not afford packages. No.
Oh boy.
And so the only thing they could do was dramatically reduce the salary. So they gave everyone a 50% pay cut.
Oh wow, that's
50%. And I never forget that the CEO came and, how many people were we? About probably, 600-700 people, brought everybody into the town hall, into the cafeteria, and talked about the issue and talked about what he was facing. And the authenticity, I mean, he was in tears. And the authenticity and the raw emotions that he showed, that how hard this was for him to communicate and convey, and the promise to the people that once we get past this, you will basically get retroactive pay. So all the 50% that you've lost through this, period, will pay you that back, and more. Everyone walked out of the room, not a shred of anger amongst anyone. Right. And they worked, I worked a lot harder after that for him. And so it just, again, goes back to how do you communicate, and just that authenticity, that leadership.
That is so true. And, what a leader that was. And just to bring it into a current example. So Easy Cater, wonderful company. For those on the call that don't know Easy Cater, they are a SaaS solution that helps restaurants do large catering orders digitally for companies, which is great, right? Who doesn't love Easy Cater? They have an office in Boston and an office here in Denver. Wonderful, wonderful culture. I have friends that work there. Easy Cater's doing it right. COVID kicked in. Companies aren't doing corporate lunches. Restaurants don't know what to do. They did a huge layoff. A very good friend of mine and mentor, he's the same age as me. His name is Eric. He's wonderful. And he would be fine me telling you this. He said, he made a public post on LinkedIn about this, by the way, said the way that Easy Cater handled from the genesis of we have to reduce headcount to the execution of the exits was flawless, because it was driven at the helm by sincerity, authenticity, and transparency. Well, I'll tell you, that's all I needed to hear. So now, of course, I think Easy Cater is great, and they will come back, because we will need the Easy Cater digital platform. As a company needs to do their large catering orders with restaurants, they will come back.
Yeah.
And the people that they had to exit were exited with grace and with elegance. And that matters. And I'm telling you about this in a call today. So it worked. It was in their best interest.
Exactly.
It's always in your best interest to do the right thing and do right by people. Bottom line, business bottom line, it's always in your best interest.
Okay, so 2 more questions, Brian. I can't, I mean, I love talking to you. I can go on forever talking to you. It's pretty awesome.
Me too. I'm having a ball.
I'm glad. So what books or resources, I mean, you've named a number of resources, a number of phrases. What books, resources are you recommending for leaders to turn to in this time? And I'm going to type it up, or Caroline, if you could type it up in the chat as Brian's names it, that would be great. Where are you going?
So this one is a favorite. This is actually one that we're doing as a book club at my current company. And this is Patrick Lencioni.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know, Patrick, The Truth About Employee Engagement. It's wonderful. And there are the 5 truths and he has a couple other books. So he has a TED Talk. Look him up on LinkedIn. Google him, Patrick Lencioni. He's wonderful. The Truth About Employee Engagement is fantastic. And it talks about these larger, it's really not brain surgery, is it? It really is very simple. It's just, there are tools of how to do it, to remind yourself to do it, which I think is super important. So that's the one I'm reading right now that I have really thought has been, that's how you say that phrase. I keep reading it going, oh, that's what I mean when I say that, right? So he just gives you some language that you can use that will help when you make these agreements with your team, or with your boss or whomever you need to have these agreements with engagement, and to build out those structures. So that's going to be my number 1 for the day.
Awesome. Number 2?
Ooh, who do I read? I love Oprah. I think she's a real leader.
Yeah.
Barack Obama. I mean, I read everything that they're doing on LinkedIn and on their websites. Like, talk about leadership. Tim Cook, follow him on LinkedIn. He's an influencer. For those that don't know, he was the COO of Apple and then became the CEO of Apple. He is an out LGBT executive leader. He just penned a letter to all of his employees in Apple about what happened to George Floyd. If you
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I have to read that.
You should read it. I think you would really appreciate it. That's leadership.
Yeah. All right. Now, the $64,000 question.
Okay, great.
For our audience, if there is one thing you want them to walk away with, what would that be?
People are not machines. We are definitely complicated mosaics of our combined experiences. And you cannot burn people out by running them down as machines. You don't win that way. You don't make money that way, not in a real sustainable way. If you can meet people where they are, not where you think they should be, and you authentically do that as a leader or a manager or whomever, or a colleague, right? Or a friend, for God's sake, then you will always have that loyalty from that employee or that friend. And you will always have that to drive success for your initiatives, your business plan, your bottom line, your quarterly goals or metrics. It really is that simple. And if you don't see that leadership in a company that you work for, get out. You might have to wait till COVID, but find a place where you see that mirrored, because you can't be at work all day. Okay. We are more than one thing. So just do that. If you are that leader and you act like that, good luck to you. Godspeed.
So then I want to build on this because I totally agree with you and it sounds good. For a lot of leaders, they are under pressure by their boss.
Totally.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like a CEO under pressure by the board.
Yep.
CMO under pressure by the CEO, and it goes down, right?
Yep.
And yet, so-and-so has, whatever, there's life that they have, the employee has a family member in the hospital, you name it. And so it takes courage for that leader. Let's say I'm a CMO and the CEO is putting me under pressure to provide whatever it is. And I'm depending on this employee to deliver this, yet this employee needs my support. It takes courage for that leader to go in front of CEO and say, we need to give so-and-so a little room. It needs to, and not everyone does that.
They don't. That is right. Mm-hmm. No, not everyone does. And I think it's all about, have you created a culture where people can raise their hand and ask for help? Or have you created a culture where everyone's a high performer, and that if you make one mistake, then you're out of the inside club or the inside track? You know what I'm talking about, right? The inside track. Oh yeah. It's not fun, is it? And as companies get larger, there's more of that stuff. And that we could do a whole thing about politics and bureaucries in a large organization. Because I have a lot to say about that. I was in a couple of them, not currently, but in the past. And that's a whole nother paradigm. But when we're talking about our 5 to 15 person company or our 50 to 100 person company, you don't see all that stuff. The politics are less because people are in it. And hopefully people can raise their hand and say, listen, Johnny can't get all this done because it's too much for one person. I think we need to reset or right set our expectations. Okay. And push back on that. And if they say, well, no. And then just say, okay, well then how might we do this? Okay. If you have all the answers, how might we do this? I invite you to the conversation. How might we get Johnny to do these things in this set of limitations or in this apparatus that we've created? And everyone talks about the why. Simon Sinek, right? Why do we do this? Why do we do that? Well, I think that we're over the why. I think everyone knows why we do things. I want to know how. Right. I think this is the year of how. How might we do that?
How might
you suggest that? How might you recommend that? You seem to know.
I love it.
No more why, how.
So 2 things. People are not machines. And no more whys. How?
How?
I love it.
How are we going to do this? And then let's support that how. Right? Because if we don't do this, we don't make money.
Right.
And the goal is to make money on this call, right? Everyone here wants to make money. So you have to empower your team, whether it's a crisis or not, or you don't make money.
With that, this was great. Thank you so much, Brian. This was fantastic.
This was great. Thank you so much. I wish I had a martini and we were going to go and figure out how to change the world.
But something will tell me we'll be back. To all of our audience, thank you so much for being here. This whole webcast is going to be published on workability.works, and I will also post it on my Twitter feed and also on my LinkedIn. Join us. We're going to have a good conversation on Thursday about branding and marketing. And with that, I will see everyone in a couple of days. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye.